Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity-Hive's weekly show. I've been really looking forward to this one. It's the long-anticipated intro to visual FX with the amazing, the incredible, the awesome artist, Mo Moolah. So, hi, Mo.
Thanks for that glowing introduction. It's been a long time coming, and not an amazing. It's just a normal person trying to get along in the world. So just some simple stuff. Yes,
you do awesome things, and so I'm going to bring Neil on so he can harass you too.
Yes, hey there. Love. Hello, Neil. Hi. How are you?
Very good. Yeah. Now, Mo, you got to remember, I've been around people like Nick Raz and Aaron Stern and all the guys like that at things like Adobe Max and NAB for years, and I've seen the stuff that they do, and I've seen the stuff that you've done, and also the stuff that you've done for us here at Creativity-Hive. You're good, kid. You are good.
Well, yeah. You try. So the purpose behind the entire kind of series of visual effects stuff is actually to make it really simple for people who don't understand too much about visual effects or have found it to be difficult to create visual effects, because there's so many tutorials about visual effects and it can get a little bit confusing. So this piece that I put together will actually be able to be recreated by anyone, even if you haven't had much experience in After Effects. It's actually that simple. You would have to have just a simple grasp of the program to understand certain things. But yeah, let me not say much. Let me rather show you what it's all about. So I will share my screen with you, if that's okay. And I then will bring up the first screen. Okay, and let me just put that over there. And of course, I'll bring up After Effects. So what we're aiming to do in the very first one, okay, the final thing that we're looking to recreate, I'm going to play it back, and this is what it is. Okay, so that's where we are, right? That's the first one. The second one, which is a bit of a bonus, would be this. And kind of just making understand people how to create these rather cool looking things. We can add more into this. I just didn't have enough time to add more. But how to create these really cool looking things and not have too much knowledge about the program itself. You need to know some stuff, right? So I've broken them up into project number 1 and project number 2. And if I go in, I'm going to recreate this entire thing from scratch for you, right? So cool. We understand how the finals now look, as you can see. So we're going to look at going in and creating a brand new project. So the very first thing is we need to look at the assets that we're going to use. So I'm going to just make a new composition by dragging my footage over into the new composition little icon here. And you'll see that we've got this going on. So it's shot against the green screen. Let me just push it forward so we get the action first. And when I say that, I'm just moving my timeline left. For those who don't know what this little line is, it's a current time indicator. And it's going to put it at that point. So they start moving. And of course, we want to get rid of the green screen. And how do we do that in After Effects? It's actually pretty simple. As long as you shot your green screen properly, you can see there's a lot of shadows. There's also motion tracking markers, which we're not really going to get into at this point. It's not important. We can just forget about those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up into our Effects and Presets tab, and we're going to type in the word
right here, Mo, and just point out to people that if you're doing much green screen work, like basic interviews, if the green screen's pretty well done, you can handle in Premiere. But if you've got full figure people or anything, any motion or anything like that,
Yes.
It is so much better to do your green screen over in After Effects. It is well worth the time spent to learn how to handle it. So this is an excellent starting tutorial for people these days.
I think definitely I totally agree with you. And the trick behind any kind of green screen work, whether it's interview footage or it's action based footage, is your 3 point lighting, because you must make sure that your lighting is coherent and that there aren't too many shadows or none at all. So you got a left light, right light, and a top light to cancel out shadows. You'll see there's a lot of shadows in here, but After Effects pretty much, without going into things like Mocha and so forth, can take care of that. So we go up into the Effects and Presets panel, and we just type out the word key light, and it'll just pop up KEYL, and we just drag it down onto that layer, right? And you'll see that we've got this up here, which is the key light effects control. So the effect control tab sits up here, and this little eyedropper asks us, hey, what color do you want to remove, right? So we just take the eyedropper and bang it down here. Now we can see we got a lot of issues going on here. We got this going on and so forth. So you just undo that a second and grab, again, just any green really. And the trick is to understand how the workings of these following things work, especially the screen matte. So on the top it says view final result. So it's showing me my final result, but that's not really what I want to see. So if I go to screen matte, this is very important. The areas you want to show should be as white as possible, and the areas that are going to be removed should be as black as possible. That's all it is. So if I look at this clip black as an example, and if I push it, see what happens. I can push it to the point where I'm getting some clean background. I go to the clip white, I'm getting better. It's a little bit of spill on the edges at the bottom and so forth. Don't push it too high. And if I go to my final result down here, watch what happens. We got a very clean green screen. So you might say, hey, look at these little lines at the bottom. What am I going to do with it? There's no need for this entire shot. The whole shot's not in frame, right? So the actors are only in certain. So you can actually simply mask the areas that you don't want out to be removed. Very, very simple. So I'm going to just delete that key light. I'm going to go back to my original key light in project number 1, which is right here, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That one? Yeah, that one. Yes. And I'm just going to go to that layer, and I'm just going to copy that key light effect really quickly because I did a lot of work on that one. And I'm going to go back in here, and I'm just going to click on the layer and paste it in. And now you can see it's looking very nice and clean. All right. So this is the first thing we want to do. Okay. So, all right, we've got our subject matter against green screen shot. And then we're going to look at what would we like to do next. So next, what we'd like to do is choose some sort of background. So let's look at what we're going to do. Here, we've got this forest scene. It's a simple JPEG image. Simple. I'll hide the other layer so you can see there's no movement on this layer whatsoever. That's just sitting there. We're going to naturally scale it up. So I'll hit the letter S to scale, and I'm just going to kind of do that. And then I'm going to just push it up a little bit so we have some of this at the bottom to play with. And now if I enable the top layer, presto, there we are. There are the two guys fighting in a forest. Of course, it looks horribly unnatural because of the lighting. It doesn't really match. And you can see at the bottom, they don't look like they're actually standing on the surface. And this is now where the visual effects work starts to come through, and we have to see how we're going to do it. So if I go back to my original one, and I'm just going to hide everything, and I'm going to start from scratch. This is my forest layer. All right. As you can see, I've keyframed it so that the scale value, it's going from a certain scale value. There's a very, very slight movement. You'll notice I'm scaling it to give it almost a parallax effect. Okay. If I look at the second layer, I've duplicated the forest layer, but I've actually added a mask onto it. So if I look at the mask, what a mask actually does is you can take something, for example, we take that forest layer, and I'm going to take any sort of drawing tool and do that, and I will be able to, if I go down here, I will be able to mask out and show a particular part of that image. So that's what we're doing here. And if I look at that second one, that's the mask that we're going to see down here, and it's got a little bit of an edge feather, but you can see the mask has got also a scale value attached to it. So if we look at the two together, and we just kind of solo those two, which means we're only going to see those two layers right now, what should happen if I exaggerate the movement, right? There's a parallax effect, a kind of Hitchcock zoom movement camera-wise, right? So that's what we're looking for. One is going backwards and one is coming forwards. It's kind of parallax effect. But if you look at it nice and slowly, we're getting that effect.
So you're creating a feeling of movement in an image that had no movement. Is that what you're trying to do?
I am doing that, yes. So I will do it live so you can understand how to do it. So this is our normal background from scratch. There's nothing added to it. It's just a JPEG image. I'm going to call it, I'll just press enter on the name and I'll call it F1 for forest 1. And then I'm going to duplicate it. So Control D or Command D to duplicate a layer. And it'll rename it to F2 immediately. It'll just add the next number. So let's take away F1. F2 and leave just F1 in. I just want to be able to see my layer controls. Okay, so which means I can see what's happening like that. And for F1 at the bottom, which we see right now, so everything else is hidden. We're only seeing F1, which is the forest. We're going to take the scale value, hit the letter S, which was there, and I'm going to press that, and I'm going to first start it out about there, all right? And then I'm going to come down. I first want to check how long these guys fight. I want to see where that fight ends. So it about ends here. So I want to make sure that everything kind of ends here. And the easiest way to do this, you can do it in several shortcut ways, but it can be a little bit worrying if you don't know shortcuts. You can see your duration here is 2702. We'll make it 27. So I'll just go up to composition settings, composition settings, and I'll set my duration to 2700, which will cut off everything nicely. There's a way to trim this as well. You can also do that. So, oops, I'm sorry. Let me just go back. That was the wrong one. Composition project 2. Okay, let's just make a new folder called demo. So we have all the assets in that demo folder. Okay, so that's goes there. Let's just see if that's the right one. Okay, that's not the right one. I'm just looking for where this particular one is. Let's see. Okay, that's there. That's there. Okay, let's just see. I just want to see where it's gone. I didn't name it, so I should have named it. Okay, that's up here. So that's the project. This is project 2. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we've got that. That should be there. Reveal in the project. I'm sorry, it's actually this one. Right, and that's in project 2. Okay, so that's where we are, right? And I'm going to go to that. Sorry, I'm going to go to that composition setting right here, and that should have been 2700. Mistaken. Was it 27? Let's see. Sorry, 17, not 27. All right, so we're going to set this duration to 1700. So it'll tidy up everything. There you go. So that all ends now nice and tidy. There's no extra footage. So let's get rid of everything again. So we've got the scale that starts here. We're going to click this little keyframe button, which is the little stopwatch kind of icon that you have, right? Click it. That will create a keyframe. A keyframe records a particular value in time, which means it's recorded the scale value here. I'm going to move the current time indicator forward, and I'm going to scale down like that. Okay, so from here to here, the scale value is going to change, but it's a very gradual change, as you can see. Okay, cool. So that's the first step. The second step is to go in here, and I'm going to place these guys where I want them to be. So I'm going to just kind of put them about, say, here, all right? And this is where I want to create the second mask. So I'm going to go to the second layer, which we had duplicated the background, and I'm going to take any shape tool, and I'm going to just simply do this. Let me make it a bit smaller, actually, about that. Okay, so we can see we've got that, but it's too hard edged. So we're going to press the letter M and M twice. You'll see you've got all the mask parameters. So I'm going to set the feather for the mask to kind of give it a soft feather. See that feather? Okay, so we've got, as you can see, I'll just zoom in for you. You can see we've got a nice soft feather here on the edge, just like Photoshop. It's kind of feathering, simple stuff.
In other
Okay.
words, it drops off the amount of image that you see there, just kind of fades out.
Yes, if I take that feathering down, you'll see it'll become very hard on the edge like that. This just expands the mask, really. It expands that edge. So I can, it's an easy transition. So it doesn't really look too hard on the edge. All right, so that's there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the scale value. Forget these two guys up here. We're going to look at the scale value, and I'm going to actually deliberately increase it quite a bit, like so, right? And I'm going to, again, animate it and bring that in and kind of bring that in like that. So if I look at this, here's the animation, as you can see, right? And now if I open up both of them, let's look at these two. Right, so if we start to look at, let's just see, where's that scale? Yes, yeah. So yeah, we can scale this down. Let's see how that looks. Do that and go up here. All right, so we got this. Can you see that movement, Miriam? Do you see it moving towards the screen?
Yeah.
All right, so it's subtle.
Very subtle, but just enough to give it that sense of realism. I
That
love
is-
this, that you don't need to have footage. You can just use still images, which of course is where my comfort is. So using
Sure.
still images, but still creating movement.
So absolutely. So the parallax effect is now the background, the image, the complete image. We want to give it a movement in the opposite kind of direction. We want to move it away. All right? Which means we'd have to kind of scale up like this. All right, that's fine. And then scale down at the end. So we're going to scale kind of just down like that. And if I look at this, you're starting to see a little bit of parallax. Let's just take that. Yeah, there you go. If you look around this area here, you'll see that effect.
Now, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, but to make, if you're coming in on something, the foreground looks nearer, but the background looks farther away. And
absolutely,
that if you just move the whole thing in, it wouldn't look real because
That's
you
right.
don't have that opposite motion. So
that is correct.
That's a really crucial thing there, that having the foreground come forward, the background goes farther away.
Now, if we look at the guy's foot, right, it doesn't look too realistic on the surface, and we could do some complex stuff with it, but I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to move him below one layer, and watch what happens. He gets hidden in the foliage, right, which makes it very, very believable when we watch it at a normal zoom level like this. And what I'm noticing here is this animation, the bottom animation for me right now, is a little too much. It's too much of movement. So what I want to do is I want to reduce this level a little bit, about so. I don't want to give it too much. I just want to give it a little bit, that kind of thing. There you go. All right. So we've got this going on so far. Okay. The next thing we need to look at is, what are we going to use for some atmospherics? What can we possibly use? So if I look at, for example, let's go in and drop this guy. So let's preview it and see what it is. It's these little kind of particles that I created before, and they just pre-rendered without going to complex stuff like particle creation. And I'll take that and I'll put this down here, all right? And as you can see, it hides everything because the blend value, it's, the opacity, it's got a black background. So what I'm going to do here, excuse me, I'm going to change the mode from normal to screen. And it might not be in your face, and that's what we want. We don't want visual effects to be in your face. We want it to be subtle. So we'll have a look. Here we've got these really cool little particles coming up. But let's look at where these particles are actually sitting. They're actually sitting kind of, oops, I'm sorry, let's just see where this thing is. It's always good to name things. Always good to name things.
Yes.
Because when you're working with
You
this
get
sort of
so
stuff,
many different layers, and you
yeah,
can't find what
can.
you're.
So this is how big it is at the moment. It's really big. So we need to just scale it down so that it kind of almost fits the comp or the sequence. And we do this, and now we got a really nice atmospheric buildup. That's the beginning of it, all right? So we can see it stops here. So all we have to do is, because it's a loop, we'll duplicate it, push it up here, and it's a seamless loop. Totally seamless. You'll never see it. We'll duplicate it again, and we'll kind of do that. Now, we might say, oh my God, I'm going to get confused. So I'll just go to this little label color on the left-hand side, click it, and make it maybe a red because it's embers. So we know all the embers are red in color. So the layers are easily seen if we need to work with them again. All right, so we're at this point. Let's look at some more atmospherics. Let's look at some fog. So we got some fog coming through. Sort of fog. All right, cool. So let's take that fog and drop that fog right in. Again, really big. Let's scale it down so we know it's right here. And then again, we're going to change the blend mode to screen. Okay, let's look at what we have so far. Let's take away these actors. Again, naming conventions is so important. I know they're here somewhere. So I'm going to make it easier myself, and I'm just going to make this a color that I can recognize really quickly, a yellow. So I know the yellow, actually, I'm just going to make it a green. So I know that's my green screen work. So I can see it at the blink of an eye, right? So I'm just going to hide them. We don't want to see them here at the bottom. So let's look at the atmospheric. Fog is coming in. Got some embers going up. It's looking good so far. All right, cool. Next, let's look at what's going on in the action. You'll see that the guys are coming in. They going to hit the tree. See that tree? So I want to bring them down a little bit, like so. And of course, my mask is way too over the top here. So I'm going to go back to that layer, and I'm just going to go to the mask here. And I'm just going to double click the mask so I can make the mask a little bit lower. I don't want it to break off where, so we can see them, that kind of thing, right? Actually, we'll do that, and we'll go back to these guys, and we'll make them slightly smaller. Let's take the scale value of these actors down and make them kind of just sit up here. All right, so we're going to do this. The mask. Let's go back to the mask. It's too much up here, so let's double click the mask and drop the mask down about so. Okay, looking good so far. All right, so it's all looking realistic so far, but the problem is they hit the tree. Look at where the tree is, right at the top. Okay, so we got a problem. We need to know how to fix this problem. So to fix the problem is not difficult for people that are like, oh my God, what do we do here? It's insane. So follow along. Not a difficult thing, but important to understand what is actually going on. We're going to take the background. So, T1 as an example, without the one that's got the mask at the bottom. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to call it tree. sorry, tree. Right? I'm going to call it tree, and I'm going to look for any masks that are attached to it because I duplicated it. The masks, that's good. And you'll notice that I got the tree, and if I take it right to the top, it actually blocks everything off. Naturally, it's a whole image that I've duplicated. It's the background. What I want to do is I want to just cut this layer out. The tree, I want to take the layer out. So I'm going to take my pen tool, like in Photoshop, but I'm just going to create a very, very loose mask like this. Now, that tree is sitting. Watch when the arrow goes above it. What happens? Can you see it's going to sit behind that area, right? So I need to make sure my mask does not block the arrow. Sorry, the sword. And then I'm just going to press M twice, and I'm going to take the feather off the mask over so that it's got this edge like that. So we can see what's going on. This doesn't need to be here. The tree actually needs to be there, right? But the sword is now in the back of the tree, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were aiming for, to get that sword into the back of the tree. But, of course, if you hit a tree, you don't expect the tree to not move, right? So we need to create some movement on that tree because it's going to shake. Okay, so let's look frame by frame. He hits the tree. Let's look at the tree. We have a little tool up here that is called the puppet pin tool. Looks like a little thumbtack. Okay, so what the puppet pin tool does is very simple, but I will explain it to you in a brand new area so that you don't get confused. So if we look at, let's take let's just put this down here. Okay, so a puppet pin tool, if I take that little pin, I want to actually, I'm creating these little pins, and watch what's going to happen when I move over one of these pins. I can actually start, you'll see I can distort a portion,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want the whole thing, so I'm going to pin down the edges so that the whole image does not move when I try to move a portion of one of these pins. Now what would happen? Let's just pin one more down. Okay, so watch this. You can see, you can start to distort things, all right? So I'm gonna just not worry about this composition. Let's go back to the puppet pencil here. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pin down everything on the edge that I can. Come on, puppet pencil, don't do this to me. Okay. All right, let's just kind of pin stuff down. After Effects, yes. Okay, so I'm going to pin all this kind of stuff, and you can understand what I'm going to do with this, right? So I can just kind of pin that. And I want to, as you look at that tree, branch of the tree.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're going to do now is he hits the branch. Let's create a pin here, and we're going to animate it, and he's going to go like that, and that's it. And we look at the first one, he hits the tree, and let's look at the branch. Let's push the branch up even more, about there. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Then he does this, and let's get a pin here, and let's go forward and push this branch down a little bit, like so. You can see it's creating keyframes for me. Look at that. All right, and then of course a tree doesn't just stop, right? It goes back to position 1. So we have to move the branches back up. All right, and we'll make it kind of shake around a little bit like it's, a leaf, a tree. All right, if we look at it again, let's just kind of bring that branch down one more time here and make it look as realistic as we can. All right, and here is the branch. Let's just get away from that puppet pin tool so we can see what's going on. Okay, here's our tree. This guy hitting it. Poof, bang, poof. Super cool, super easy. You don't need a degree in anything right now, but it's look at that tree just kind of doing its thing in the wind. So let's play it back full speed. Bang, bang, bang. There you go. And of course, you want to just create a little bit more movement on that tool. Let's go back. So puppet, yes. And let's just look at that movement. Down, up, down, and then of course down again a little bit. And like it's physics, so it kind of just gradually go back to its normal position. All right, so we won't spend too much more time on that little guy. And as you can see, it's looking really nice and realistic. Bang, bang, bang. Great. So the guy hits him. And now when you hit someone that hard with a shield or any object, there's bound to be a bit of gore. I haven't made it black and white for sensitive viewers. Please bear with me. People don't mind blood. So I've got a little asset that's pretty much just kind of blood splatter. Really, it's not real blood, guys. It's just fruit juice colored red. So don't worry about it. And we want to bring the blood in. Then how do we do that? It's very difficult because remember, it needs to be behind the shield. But now you have to go into Mocha Pro and you have to go into rotoscoping. No, you don't have to do any of this. Let's make it easy. So let's bring the blood right down. Okay, so let's look at where that blood is, and we're going to bring it to this point. Okay, and we're going to make it. It might again, it's fruit juice, so don't be too concerned. Right? So if we put it out here, you'll see that we've got the effect. However, that is appearing in front of the shield at certain points.
Yeah, that doesn't
and
work.
that does not work at all. So what do we do? All right, let's look at the layer, which is the axis. Which one is it? If I didn't give it the label, the color, we wouldn't know, right? So we'd have to look at the label. So it's nice to label stuff. Let's duplicate the layer. So I've duplicated up here. So we've got another layer on the top right now. I'm going to mask the shield out, right? So I'm going to hide everything else for you so you can see what's going on. That's the layer on the top, and that's the layer on the bottom. Both are the same. There's no difference between them. Right now, we're going to look at that again. Let's look at that blood hit. So it's so important to see where that is. Okay, cool. And I'm going to take that top layer, and I'm just going to kind of draw. I can actually even, I'll just draw around it. Okay, and I'm going to take my blood and I'm going to put it underneath. Now, you can see what happens when we do this, right? The blood is still coming across properly. This time it's proper, right? But see that mask is pushing it behind, so it's not seen. But you now need to keyframe it properly. So bang, and let's look at where that mask is. MM for mask. I'm sorry, MM down here. Okay, we're going to animate the mask path. Very important because it cannot, edge out this way. So let's look at this mask path. Kind of just make it do this. Can you see what it's doing to the blood? It's pushing it kind of behind. And we're going to animate that mask path. So we'll just click that. And kind of just bring that down. Down. So, and then of course these ones, oops. Just going to kind of do that so it doesn't appear on his arm at all. So you see we're doing that. We'll feather it in a second to make it look a little bit neater. It's very raw right now. All right, so none of the blood is spilling in front of this area where it's not supposed to. Let me just add in one more path here. All right, so let's put that in. It's just like Photoshop, Bezier tools. Cool. So let's just animate that. This is where a little bit of slug work comes in, hard work. We're going to go forward. Just oops, let's go back in here. Take that mask. Oops. Go forward. mask. Path. Let's add one in quickly. Okay, that's fine. And then we're going to go one frame at a time forward on my keyboard. Again, like I said, this is where kind of hard work comes in.
So it's a bit of fiddly work, isn't it?
It's a little bit of, I mean, in order to get stuff going properly, I'm sorry, let me just make that. Oops. Okay, so it's a little bit of work. I mean, it's all not just, just click in and it's magic. It actually
Right.
requires a little bit of work, right? So we'll just kind of push through it as quickly as possible. And we'll do that. So it's not appearing where it's not supposed to be appearing. And if you look at that, you can see that that is now in the wrong place. So let's just go back in and start pushing that mask. As you can see, we're going to bring that mask way over here so that it doesn't appear on the guy's sleeve. Again, I'm doing it very roughly, but the effect we're looking for is kind of, it doesn't appear in the front like
Right.
so. So let's just add another Bezier point in. We've got a lot to play with. All of that. Let's push. We'll leave those alone. And that. Let's just change that mask color. I just cannot see it, so it's very difficult. There you go. That's better. And actually, that shouldn't be on his sleeve. As you can see now, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Right? It shouldn't be on the shield, and it shouldn't be there, and should not be anywhere in this area. And as we go through it, it's going to animate. So as you'll see, bang, looking good. Looking okay for now. So I won't do it too precisely, but just so that I don't spend too much time on this. But the principle is pretty simple. All right, let's get off that mask. Let's just look at it. We'll leave it where it is. Let's go in here. And if I play back, it's simple. Bang. All right. It goes past, and I'm sorry about the gore again, but just all right. If we look at it inside the scene, bang. All right, so we're there at the moment. So let's bring up actually all the little parts that we put in. Okay, so we got our atmospherics, we got this going on, and of course at the end he falls down. And of course, when he falls down, something he just start falling down. You want to create a really cool effect. So let's look at a dust wave like so. This is a dust wave, right? So it's a simple dust wave. We're going to bring that dust wave down, and we're going to put it where he falls down, right? So let's look at where that dust wave is. He falls down, and it should actually kind of be at the point where he falls down. Let's change that blend mode over to screen. And what we're going to do is kind of, we're just going to mask that so we don't see this bottom area, that little line. We don't want to see that line. Okay, cool. And now if you look at the guy falling down, you'll see that's happening, right? Right. So basically, if we start playing through it and look at it at full speed or as it renders, you've got this going on. You've got the tree, okay, realistic tree, and then you got the blood, and you got the dude falling down, and kind of that's where we are. But of course, that particular thing that we saw just now, which is the dust wave, is not very convincing. I'm not liking it at all. So I'm going to kind of do that to make it smaller, and I'm going to feather out the mask. And masks are so important. They're so important. Let's change the feather of the mask a little bit. Okay, so it's nice and smooth on the edges. And now we go to the realm of making things a little bit more realistic visually. Even though you think this is realistic, we want to make it more realistic. And that is in to bring the actors and the scene into the scene using a little bit of color techniques, which is Neil Haugen's happy hunting ground. But I'm not going to go into the complexities that Neil likes because I'm a simple guy, just know a little bit of visual effects. So I'm just going to go into curves. All right, just simple stuff. So remember, we've duplicated stuff, so we have to be careful. We have to apply it to both. So let's look at this. Let's not worry about that one. Let's look at that and that one. Okay, so that's on there. First, okay, that and okay, these two. All right, so we want to kind of bring all those in and make sure that they're matching properly in terms of color. So I'm going to drop the curves level onto it. Actually, let me drop the curves onto the bottom one. Let's look at that. And if I do it highly dramatically, you'll see what I'm doing, right? So it's crazy. So all we have to do is look at how we want to blend it into the scene. But in order to blend it into the scene, let's bring every piece back in. And let's start just kind of just edging it along so that we can see a little bit going on. All right, so let's look at how it's starting to look. It starts to blend in a little bit more. If I take away those curves or disable it, you'll see it's kind of cartoonish in its look, but now it's looking a little better. We've got a little light. But again, we're accelerating the process. There's a lot more that you need to be able to do with color in order to make it look realistic. Okay, let's go forward into it. Bang, guy gets hit, blood, splatter on the floor, and dust. Here we are. That's just a little part of it. If we go back to our original comp, which is the one that I created right at the beginning, let's look at it again, a little bit more tweaking, and let's just see where we are. Sorry. Okay. Okay, let's play back. That way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly let go of my memory and disk cache, which means where the RAM is full, and there's like 100 gigs full on the scratch disk, and we'll start again so it renders far quicker. Give it a second to catch up. And let's do it again. As you can see, as you add more stuff happening, the RAM gets clogged up and the renders take a little bit longer. So these have some light glints on the top as well. So just to add to kind of forest feel. Right, so very, very easy to understand. I'll go back to that comp that we were on now. You can see the vast difference in color from the one I created to that one. It's a huge, huge difference, right? Because I spent a little bit more time, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into all those major details. Let's look at this guy. All right, so this is a cool little one. Here he is. He's in the rain.
So I'm thinking that, is that we're already at 45 minutes, Mo, and maybe we've filled people's brains enough. I know I'm feeling
kind of
full.
I'm
going, we can do part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do part 2. This is very, very simple, not to even get into any details. It was the same thing. Essentially it was the guy, same kind of green screen guy, right? Just here. All right, that's the elements I'm going to show you quickly. I'm going to show you how to create it. We've got some rain coming down, if you can see it on your screens, guys, which is created. It's not assets. We've got more rain, a second layer to give it depth. And then we've got this background layer with water droplets on it, created, again, not assets, right? And then we've got, finally, we've got this. There's a reflection on this, so it looks like he's actually standing on
Right.
something. All right. And then the final piece of the puzzle is just to add a little bit of flair. We've got this lightning strike, which you can create right inside After Effects.
Cool.
So it's really simple to create this sort of stuff inside After Effects. It's not hugely difficult. The trick is to understand that it goes by your eye really quickly. Of course, you got to be photorealistically real, kind of real with the physics. The physics are very important, super important.
Right.
And
Like the branch. And how does a branch move? But
that is correct.
But some of the details, it's not like you're zooming in and focusing in on exactly how that branch moves.
Well, that's just kind of me. I guess I'm used to it, and people that are not used to it will spend a little bit longer keyframing what, and then if you're doing it for a feature film or you're doing it for a big production, you will spend a lot more time, a lot more time.
If it's going to be on the ginormous screen.
Absolutely. But I would be comfortable to just export this out, put it onto YouTube, and show you a before and after by going and, you've seen those videos where it swipes, it shows the final, then it takes away an effect, takes away an effect, takes away, that whole transition. I'd put it on. I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And
even on major shows, though, that you still get some things that either they figure, well, this is good enough, or just get through. There was a discussion on the Mixing Light Slack channel here a while back about I think it was, where there was a show that a movie that was out, and they were pointing out that, well, you could definitely tell that was done in a layer, that the CG for this one thing was done in a layer thing, because that whole thing you had, like you were showing with the masking with the shield over the the blood splatter and everything, and but you applied color correction to the you had two layers. You had a duplicated layer and and we're talking about making sure you apply the color to both layers of the same subject that you've created.
Yes.
Well, there was a little thing where there was about 5 or 6 frames where clearly what the subject's arm did not have the same color all of a sudden as it did just before.
Okay.
And so they were going, and you could tell what was going on there was something like this. It was a masked thing, and they had about 5 frames that didn't get the proper color in the CG work, and the colorists were noting it because that's the kind of thing that occasion that they'll get stuck with is, well, this wasn't done right, so could you fix this? And they're looking at it and going, oh, bloody hell. Oh, well, thanks a lot. And because it's just a little thing it'll only take you a minute or two to fix. And sometimes it's like, oh, right, blending that in and making that non-obvious is going to take
a lot of time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And in 10 seconds for the effects guy. And so they noticed these things. But of course, everybody was laughing that, that 5 frames went by so fast.
Yes.
Would anybody who was not a specialist at this kind of thing have ever seen it? And of course, they're going, well, probably not. And that's the thing.
If you're not a specialist, you generally don't get to see it, really. Not in a hurry, unless it's really horrible, Then
you don't know to be looking for those things. Whereas because you're watching the movie, and the people that are specialists in this are watching the surface of it, I guess you could say. They're not watching the story. They're watching the visuals. And, oh, no. See, right there, it's like that. And, well, he said something really dramatic right there. And they'll look at you like, yeah, so?
Right.
So if you look at this shot, this part of the shot, what sells it is the tree movement, completely and utterly.
Yes.
And that was done really quickly on the fly, just to give it a bounce. And if that movement was not around, we would have not made it look as realistic as
that
it
is. So
exactly
cool.
that little thing that makes it real.
Yeah, and people spend ages, Neil, on trying to understand how to get this right, when there are actually very simple methods to get this right.
And
which I've been kind of trying to get across for quite
yeah,
a few
there's
years
so
now.
many things where if you just give a little mimic of reality, if it's something like this, it happens quick. That's all people need. If it just mimics reality a little bit, they'll go ahead and accept it, and you can move on and get to your next effect that you're
Get
working.
to your next effect. And if you look at the ground at the bottom, I mean, if you go into the first one and you look at the ground at the bottom, now you can see it looks like it's very different because I took a lot of time on it. And so you'll see that ground movement is beginning to sell it nice and slowly.
Very, very cool. I
So
love it.
that's where we are, Miriam. You can see that parallax at the bottom. It's looking
Yep.
really nice. Gives you that depth, and that's just a basic a version of this. There are other ways to do it. We made them into layers that are in 3D space. One sits in front of the other, and then you have a virtual camera moving. But anyway, that's another
but
day.
this is supposed to be intro to visual effects, not getting
Not
into the
getting into it.
too much. But that was very cool. I loved the way that you took a still image and just brought it to life. That's awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody again next time.
So here